Okay, hello and welcome. Sorry about the postponement yesterday, but I'm back again today for webinar number 13. Welcome again to my home. If you haven't seen one of these webinars before, my name is Greg. I've been an English teacher for the last 15 years. Most of that time was in Korea, but I've been back here in New Zealand for the last couple of years or so. During that time, I've focused on IELTS a lot, so really look forward to helping you in this webinar. Today, we're going to focus on reading. In the last one, we looked at an academic reading test, which is a sample from the GRAID website. All right, so I'm going to bring that up on screen for you now. Okay, so right now we are on the homepage of the GRAID website. Now, this is a practice module. So what I want you to understand when we go through this reading section today, it's the academic reading section. It's not exactly the same as the authentic text, but it's going to provide you some great practice to get ready for your reading test on the IELTS test day. So let's bring it up. We go down to tests and let's work on the one that we did last time. So remember last time we looked at the section on T. Today we're going to be looking at a section on artificial intelligence. I just want to familiarize you again with the test itself. Last time I mentioned that you have 1 hour for the test on the test day. That also includes transferring your answers from the question paper to the answer paper. A little different from the listening test, for example. Don't get tripped up by that. I've heard some horror stories about people scribbling all their answers on the answer sheet in the last 2 minutes. So you want to avoid that. But what we're going to do is today we're going to look at section 2. Now, as I go through this, please feel free to ask me any questions. You can do so by sending a message to the GRAID Facebook page. If it's relevant to what we're covering at that time, I should be able to answer it then and there. Otherwise, I can answer any questions at the end after I finish section 2. So, why are we doing an academic reading test? Well, the thing is that the academic reading test is similar in some ways to the general training test. The general training test also has 3 sections, right? Like the academic test. So basically section 3 of the general training test will be similar to any one of the 3 sections in the academic reading test. So I want to try to help all of you out there, and I think by focusing on the academic test is one way that I can do that. So let's go to section 2. And what you'll notice is that there is a split screen. So you can increase the size of the actual text itself. So I'm going to do that for you. Now, last time I gave you a chance to do some skimming. What I'm going to do this time is I want you to imagine you're in the test and you feel like you're running out of time. So you don't have time to skim the whole thing first. Now, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but this is practice. So we should try to practice as much as we can in test conditions. So let's imagine this time that the test condition is that you're running out of time. And I know for so many of you that 1 hour time limit is one of the test conditions that you struggle with. So if that's the case, what we need to do is have a look over the questions. So like I said last time, each section usually has 2 different sets of questions. Now, the first set of questions is the true, false, not given questions. Now, that's going to rely more on scanning skills, right? So that's the question that you should ask yourself. Does the question rely on scanning or skimming skills? Let's have a look further down as well. So we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7 true, false, not given questions. Now, the next set of questions are the no more than 3 words from the text. Have a really close look at what it says, right? So sometimes it doesn't say from the text, and that means you might be able to transform the grammar slightly. But when the instructions say from the text, that means you have to choose 1, 2, or 3, but no more than 3 words exactly as they are written in the text. Now, this is also a scanning. Well, this is relying more on your scanning skills, right? You're going to be scanning for answers to complete the sentences. But what I would suggest is starting with these questions first. Now, the reason for this is because by completing these questions, essentially what you're given here is an overview, right? So I'll tell you what I mean. I know this font is a little small, but hopefully it gives you an idea that this is an overview of the entire reading. So by completing this overview, you're going to have a greater understanding of the reading immediately, right? So let's start with question 22. And I want to show you what I mean by scanning skills. So again, we're just going to dive straight into this one for this webinar. Imagine that we're not doing so well for time. We have to complete this with 1, 2, or 3, but no more than 3 words. The challenge will be to make super intelligent machines both cognitively and now. What you need to do is pick 1 or 2 words that you think might be easy to scan for in the reading. So in this case, I think I'm going to be scanning for super intelligent machines, right? So super intelligent machines. So at home, I want you to try scan for the same words or anything which is similar. So synonyms are a big part of the IELTS test. You might find a synonym for super intelligent machines. So this is how the split screen works. We can scroll up and down. Okay, I'm actually doing this as an example. So maybe you have found the answer at home, but what we're going to do this time is I'm just going to imagine that I couldn't find this answer, right? So this is an example where in the test, the last thing that you want to do is panic, right? So what I would do is, let's imagine that we can't find the answer for 22. Don't panic. We just go through to the next one. So, and then once we find one answer, then hopefully the other answers will be nearby. So I just wanted to show you an example of what to do if you can't find the answer straight away, right? So also, question 22 may be one of the more difficult ones. So we're going to narrow in, try find an easy one first to give us a start. So what we're looking for here, while some people are immoral, such machines should be programmed to take, right? So here, I would probably be searching for a keyword like immoral, because maybe a synonym for immoral might be unethical, but hopefully that's a word that we can find easily. So you can scan at home as well. I'm going to just scroll up and down. Please let me know if you want me to scroll up and down. If I move over something, then you want to see it again, just let me know. Okay, now, because I didn't panic when I couldn't find the first answer for 22, I think I'm having better luck now, right? So here I can see moral, right? So immoral and moral, well, they're antonyms, right? So as soon as I think I'm on the right track, then what I do is I read the entire sentence. So starting from we want them to aim for the moral high ground, not for the lows in which many of us humans spend some of our time, right? So it says while people are immoral. So then what we're doing is we're matching the meanings, right? So while some people are immoral, that has the same meaning as the lows in which some of us spend our time, right? So we want them, so we are humans, we want machines to aim for the moral high ground, not the lows, right? So the opposite of moral high ground is low ground. So high is moral, low is immoral, right? So while some people may be immoral, this has the same meaning as this part of the sentence from here to here. So then this is a difficult answer, but the answer is moral high ground. Now there's a few, obviously when we're doing these reading webinars, one of the key skills is going to be vocabulary. So what I want to point out is take the moral high ground is actually an idiom, right? So I'm going to review these at the end of the webinar, but I know that this is the answer because this is part of the idiom, right? To take, I'll highlight that, to take the moral high ground, right? So definitely one of the harder questions in this part, but we can also work out the answer from matching the meanings, right? So now that I feel I'm on the right track and I've found where I should be searching for the answers, I might go back to question 22 because hopefully that answer might be near where we found the answer for 23. So the challenge will be to make super intelligent machines both cognitively and also use the grammar hints. So and is going to be followed by a noun at some point, right? So, okay, so I found the word cognitively because now I know I'm in the right area. So we dove straight in, but now we feel like we're looking in the right place. So now hopefully things will speed up. So let's read this whole sentence because it might be the answer, right? So for safety's sake, then we want the machines to be ethically as well as cognitively superhuman, right? So the challenge will be to make super intelligent machines both cognitively and ethically superhuman, right? Now, that's a tricky one because in most cases, the words will be together. But here, well, you could suggest that I think probably the answer is most likely to be ethically, right? Because it's very unlikely you're going to come across an answer where it's separated. So even though ethically superhuman makes sense, I think just ethically alone also makes sense. So that's probably the best answer to go for. Don't use any words which are separated, right? So the challenge will be to make super intelligent machines both cognitively and ethically, right? So humans should make them with their own ethics. Let's go on to 24. And hopefully this is going to be nearby in this part of the reading, right? So this is often the case as well with these summaries. The summaries tend to focus on one part of the reading. In some cases, it might go across most of the reading, but still, we're going to get a better understanding from doing this summary, right? One reason for this is because humans are, right? So we know we were just looking around here, right? So my suggestion would be something to do with reason. That would be the word I'm going to scan for, right? So here here we finished off before with moral high ground. We finished at the end of that sentence. So from here, from luckily, I'm just going to scan for anything that I think is related to reason, right? So I'll let you do the same thing at home. Also, if you're finding it hard to find anything related to reason, then look for another word. So maybe humans, right? So they is not humans, for example. They are the robots, or the artificially intelligent robots, machines, right? So a lot of these, but then when I go on to the next sentence, just to focus on one of these, on one aspect of these difficulties, we. So we must be humans. So there's an example where if you start searching for one keyword and you find it difficult to find, then switch over to another keyword. So humans are we, and we are, this must be the answer here, deeply tribal creatures. Okay, we're making progress. Then, hopefully, what we're seeing here is that our answers are in a sequence. Now, sometimes you're going to have question types where the answers are all scattered throughout the reading, but in this case, it looks like it's sequenced. We have enough evidence to suggest that. Okay, now, this is a tougher one. I'm not going to be looking for the word AI because this whole article is about AI and that term is likely to be used throughout. What about something related to teaching or being taught, right? So let's see, we finished up with tribal creatures. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep scanning for anything related to teaching. Okay, and hopefully you found that at home as well, that when you were doing your scanning, you found the word taught, right? So when you find something that you think is part of the answer, again, just go through the same method. So we find a keyword, then we just read the whole sentence. This one's a long sentence, starting it. It is not just that we might find ourselves at the mercy of some other tribe's AI, but that we could not trust our own if we had taught it that not all suffering matters, right? Now, this is a particularly difficult one. I know that some of you might think about doing this. Now, what are the instructions? The instructions are no more than 3 words, right? And obviously here we have 4 words. So that's not the answer. This is where another key skill with the reading obviously is comprehension, right? So AI must be taught that all suffering matters. Now, to comprehend that, we just go back and we try to understand the sentence again, right? So the key to this is that this is a conditional sentence, right? So imagine this. If we had taught it that not all suffering matters, that means that would not be a good thing, right? So, okay, let's have a look at the whole paragraph here, right? So we'll start from here. We are deeply tribal creatures. We find it very easy to ignore the suffering of strangers, right? So some humans do. They find it very easy to ignore other people who are in trouble, right? So, and we even contribute to it, right? So unfortunately, as humans, we have wars, right? Sometimes indirectly, right? That could be carbon emissions, for example. For our own sakes, we should hope that AI will do better, right? So as humans, sometimes we can make others suffer directly or indirectly, but we have to hope as humans that artificial intelligence are better than us, right? It is not just that we may find ourselves at the mercy of some other tribe's AI, right? So this means, tribes could be countries, but that we could not trust our own, right? So we might build our own robots and we might not trust them. If we had taught it that not all suffering matters, right? So if we teach robots to be like us, robots might treat us like humans treat each other. So that's why AI must be taught that all suffering matters, right? So suffering is not good. We have to teach robots that suffering is not good. So hopefully you can understand by my explanation there. And this is going to happen in the test. You're going to get some questions that are more difficult than others. You're scored on a band, you're given a band score from 1 to 9. Obviously, for the examiner to create those bands, some of the questions are going to be more difficult, some of them are going to be easier. So I would say that question 25 is one of the tougher ones. Let's go to question 26. Hopefully, it's following on from where we found the answer for 25. General intelligence and moral reasoning are considered as, right? So as, hopefully it's going to be followed by a noun, but it could be an adjective before a noun. But anyway, here I would be looking for general intelligence or reasoning. So intelligence and reasoning, right? So let's have a look and see what we can scan for. I'll let you scan at home. Okay, now if you look down the bottom, now when I talk about scanning, this is, I think, the key skill in the reading test. When I'm doing my scanning, I'm not reading, I'm looking, right? So that's essentially what scanning is. And it's hard, you have to practice this, you have to train. I always like to give this example. When I was younger, sometimes my test scores would be put on the wall outside the classroom, right? So I went to school a long time ago. This probably doesn't happen anymore. But anyway, my score, along with many other people's scores, were on the wall outside the classroom. I wanted to know my score. I don't read everybody's scores because I'm in a hurry to find my score. So I'm looking for my name, right? And so what I was doing here is I was looking or scanning for keywords such as intelligence or reasoning. And then what I did while I was scanning, while I was looking, those words popped out to me, right? So both general intelligence and moral reasoning are often thought to be, right? So that is the same meaning as considered, right? Often thought to be, and there are our 3 words to give us the answer: uniquely human capabilities. Okay, so I think that's the end. I know there's one more for these fill in the gaps. Okay, but hopefully this will be an easy one because there's not much of the reading left. Okay, however, if AI was to acquire both, it would mean the end of. So I would be looking for something, maybe the word acquire is there, or a word, a synonym, right? So acquire. Okay, if we were to give, right? So give and acquire could have a similar meaning. If we are to give general intelligence to machines, we'll need to give them the moral authority too, right? So if we give those things to AI, then they acquire them. That means a radical end, right? So this one's obviously popping out, end of, end to. So we're not going to include to, but here is our answer: human exceptionalism, right? Tell me if I spell anything wrong. I probably could cut and paste, but I think I'm trying to make it as similar to the test experience. So hopefully from completing these fill in the gap type questions first, we have a better understanding of this article. Yes, when we found our answers, they were mostly in the second half of the reading, but still we're in a better position now to do these sometimes tricky true, false, and not given questions. Now, this is a question type which can confuse a lot of students. I'm just going up to the top, number 15. Let's have a look at what we're told. True, if the statement is true according to the passage. False, if the statement is false according to the passage. Now, these are the two which people get confused with. False means the information is in the passage, but it is wrong, right? Not given means there's nothing there. So a lot of people confuse false and not given. But let's scroll up right to the top. Okay, first one. An AI learned how to play chess in 4 hours. An AI that learned how to play chess in 4 hours can beat all opponents. So I want you to think at home, what word here would you be scanning for in the reading? What word do you think is going to be easiest to find? Now, for me, there are 2 words that I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at chess, and I'd probably be looking for numbers. We might be given the numeral, or it might be written out in letters as it is here. But let's have a look. We find chess. Okay, so as soon as we find chess, then that's what I would start checking. I would read the entire sentence. So a chess playing AI that can defeat not only all human chess players, but also all previous human programmed chess machines after learning the game in just 4 hours, right? So does that have the same meaning? An AI that learned how to play chess in 4 hours can beat all opponents. And if we read it again just to check, that does have the same meaning, right? So a chess playing AI that can defeat not only all human chess players, but all previous human programmed chess machines, right? So that is all opponents, both human and human programmed. Whoops, what happened here? Okay, so I've put true here. Okay, then we go down to 16. I must have clicked that by mistake, so ignore that. That might not be the answer yet. We need to check. The chess playing computer has artificial general intelligence, right? Now, I'm going to be, well, obviously it must be close by, right? So I would just keep reading at this point because it must be close by. That's yesterday's news. What's next? So we go on. True, these extraordinary accomplishments are all in so-called narrow AI, right? Where machines perform specialized tasks, right? So what it's saying is chess playing AI is not artificial general intelligence. It is what's known as narrow AI, right? So it's not artificial general intelligence. Chess playing computers are narrow AI, right? So the answer is false. Okay, we go on to 17. Okay, and we're asked here, the development of AGI. Now, this is where we have to think, what is AGI? And if we go back up, then it is an initialism, AGI, right? An initialism. So the development of AGI began in the middle of the 20th century. So here I would just be scanning for 20th and probably century, right? So let's see what we can find. It looks like these are in sequence. And here, okay, by mid-century, we may have artificial general intelligence machines that are capable of human-level performance on the full range of tasks that we ourselves can tackle, right? Now, is this talking about the 20th century? Or is it talking about the future? Now, this is the key. It says by. Now, if your answer is the future, well done. And that obviously means that that is false, right? Because now it's the 21st century. When we say by, it means a point in the future. So we have another false answer. All right, let's make sure we've put false there. Very good. So 18. AI is used to manufacture telescopes. Now, the word I'm going to be scanning for there is telescopes. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing when I'm choosing words to scan for. I'm looking for the keyword which I can isolate easily in the reading, right? So Now, you've probably been scanning at the same time, and hopefully you've seen that word there, right? So once you find the word that you think will tell you the answer, you just do this methodically. Then you just read the whole sentence, starting from it. It is remarkable what they accomplish, that they may be as far from the physical limits of thought as our eyes are from the Webb Space Telescope. Now, does this tell us that AI is used to manufacture telescopes? Is that true? Is it false, or is it not given? At this point, if you're not sure, I would probably just have a little bit more of a scan to see if there's any more information about AI manufacturing telescopes. So I would go back to the beginning of the paragraph and I would just scan over. Is there anything here about telescopes? Human brains, light bulb? No. Then I'd go to the next paragraph and I'd just be looking. Anything else about telescopes? No. So we have scanned over these two paragraphs, and the only mention of telescopes was in this sentence where it said, it is remarkable what they accomplish, but they may be as far from the physical limits of thought as our eyes are from the Webb Space Telescope. So hopefully at home, you've also realized that that information is not given. All right, so I'll just make sure that that's listed as not given. Well done. So the information is not in the passage. Not given are the trickiest ones for many students, but you just have to, okay. Another way of thinking about this is ask yourself the question, is AI used to manufacture telescopes? Right, so change it into a question. Is AI used to manufacture telescopes? And then if you were asked this question, your answer would be, I don't know, right? So, because we don't know from reading. So is AI used to manufacture telescopes? I do some reading here. I don't know. If your answer is I don't know, then it's not given. Hopefully that's another tactic that you can use. So question 19, does the following information agree with the information given in the passage? So that's the key. AI needs to be programmed to make ethical decisions. Now, probably the word I'm going to look for here will be decisions. It really depends. I just think it might be easier for me to find that. There are not so many synonyms for decisions, perhaps. Another one I might be looking for is ethical. So I'll let you scan at home. Just going to scroll down. Okay, maybe you can see here already ethically. Now, hopefully you're going to remember that when we did our first set of questions, we've already covered this part of the reading before. So hopefully this should have sunk in. So we find ethically, right? So AI needs to be programmed to make ethical decisions, right? Okay, when I read here though, I can't see anything about programming. So that's okay. What I do, when I find the keyword, I read it. For safety's sake then, we want the machines to be ethically as well as cognitively superhuman. So there's nothing here which relates to the information from the question sheet. Then I just keep reading, right? So I'm looking for anything else about ethically, right? So morals are related to ethics, but what I'm looking for is programming, right? Maybe I have to focus on programming and decisions to find the information. Okay, so sometimes when we're doing the scanning, it's a matter of trial and error. So there's a lot of mentions of anything of ethics. So I'm avoiding ethics and now I'm focusing on scanning for decisions, right? And here I find the word decisions. So I hold my breath and I hope that the information is here. So imagine we want an AI to handle resource allocation decisions in our health system, for example. Okay, so we're talking about decisions, right? It might do so much more fairly and efficiently than humans can manage with benefits for patients and taxpayers. So I'm still not sure that it's telling us it needs to be programmed. So I just have to keep reading until I find the answer. But we'll need to specify its goals correctly. For example, e.g., to avoid discriminatory practices, right? So we would need to specify its goals. Now, again, you're going to come across some of the questions which are more difficult than others. This one here is a more difficult question because it's forcing you to read more and more, to comprehend more and more of the reading to find the answer. Now, I can explain the answer to you. The answer is true. Let's go back, but I want to explain why the answer is true, right? So first of all, I also had to do a lot of scanning until I found where the answer is in the reading, right? So first of all, I looked for ethical, but there were too many mentions of the word ethical or ethics. But then what I did is I switched my attention to scanning for decisions and I found it here. So imagine we want an AI to handle resource allocation decisions in our health system, for example, right? So we want robots to decide who gets what in a hospital, for example. It might do so much more fairly and efficiently than humans can manage, right? With benefits for patients and taxpayers, but humans would need to specify its goals correctly, right? So we would have to tell the robot what the goals of the hospital is. So that means if it's a robot, we need to program it, right? So definitely one of the harder questions in this section, but hopefully you can understand now. Then we go on to 20. Okay. AI tour guides have been trialed in some countries, right? Now, hopefully at this point, from all of the scanning you've done, you might suddenly think, well, I haven't seen anything about AI tour guides, but let's have a look. Let's see if we can find anything related to tour guides. Now, we go back to any parts that we haven't looked at carefully. So I think through here, for example, this might be one section I would check because that's one that we're less familiar with. So I just look for anything related to tourism, travel, right? I can't find anything there related to travel. Now, maybe this might be confusing for some, like when it's talking about routes and direction. Some people might associate that with tour guides, but it's not saying anything about tour guides, AI tour guides being trialed in some countries. So I move on. We're already familiar with this part here, right? And this is about how humans are tribal. So there was nothing there. And we've already covered that part. And there's nothing about tour guides. And the last one, we're familiar with that as well. So there's nothing in the rest of the paragraphs about AI tour guides being trialed in other countries or some countries. So this is why the not given is so difficult for so many students. Like I could continue to keep scanning, but that means I'm going to run out of time. So at some point you have to call off the search, so to speak. And at this point, I'm just going to say, well, I don't think it's there, right? So then I go to my last question, I believe. Yes. Okay. Does the following statement agree with the information given in the passage? In health systems, whoops, AI make resource allocation decisions. Okay, so very similar to the one before, right? So now let's go back. We know where that information is. So, right, so we found the word decision. Now straight away, I see the word imagine, right? So in health systems, AI makes resource allocation decisions. So this is saying this is a general truth that in health systems, AI makes resource allocation decisions. But in the reading, we are told to imagine this. So this means it's false, right? Okay, so at this point, we check to make sure we have everything answered. Now, if spelling is off, you are going to lose points on this practice module, but hopefully everything is spelled. I'm just going to go and click next, and then hopefully I can see my answers. Oh, I got one wrong. What did I do? 26. Might be spelling. It is indeed spelling. So what have I done here? So I've put in the wrong word. Where are we? So where are we? Uniquely human capacities. Oh, that's silly. Okay, so there we go. So as I mentioned, if you do spell something wrong, or if you put in the wrong word, you will be marked down. Obviously, that's a human error on my behalf. But what I want to do at this point is just talk about some of the vocabulary that I thought was important. Now, when you are preparing for the IELTS, it can be really overwhelming when you're doing the reading practice because you're going to do a number of different readings, and the topics are so wide-ranging. As we looked at last time, we had a reading about tea. So there was a lot of vocabulary which was quite specific to the topic of tea. In this case, there's going to be quite a lot of topic which is very specific to artificial intelligence or robots. It's very hard to remember all of these words. So I think a nice way to sample and just learn some of the vocabulary is to focus on the vocabulary which is used in the questions, right? So what I've done is I've gone through and I've just selected some of the words which I think are important. Now, I'm going to put these up on I've got these all written down, so I'll write these up on the screen at the end. I thought opponents was a word which is more general, right? So by general, I mean, this is a word which is more likely to feature in multiple tests, not just this one, right? So opponents could be used in a number of different contexts, right? So opponents. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is beat opponents, right? When you do your writing and speaking, you are judged. Part of your vocabulary, your lexical resource score is based upon collocations. So this is an example of a collocation. Now, I have mentioned this in previous webinars, but now I'm online and I can share my screen with you. This is the Collocation Dictionary, right? So it doesn't have every word in the English language, but hopefully this is correct because I tried this before. If we put in the word opponent, there we get an example, right? So we can beat an opponent, right? So what this shows us, this Collocation Dictionary, is it shows us the natural combination of certain words. Again, this Collocation Dictionary does not have every word in the English language, but it will have a lot. It doesn't have every collocation, but the reason I like this one is because it shows the most common ones, right? So I just wanted to point that out, right? So beat opponents, right? That's a strong collocation. So we'll go through Okay, I thought this was another word, which is a nice one. If I was creating a vocabulary list for you to study at home based on this reading, I would absolutely select development. That is a word which is going to be used across many different contexts, right? So the next thing I want to share with you is called a learner's dictionary. Now, Merriam-Webster, if you're not aware, is an American dictionary. The spelling I use in my webinars when I write is based upon British spelling because I'm from New Zealand and that's our spelling convention. It doesn't matter where the dictionary is from. What's more important is I think this is a wonderful dictionary for English learners, and I want to show you why. Because it gives you easy to understand definitions, right? So, and in this case, the definition is the first one here. I'll see if I can make that bigger for you. The act or process of growing or causing something to grow or become larger or more advanced. And you're also given some examples of whole sentences or phrases where it is used, right? Now, so child development, for example, would be a collocation, right? Muscle development. So a lot of you probably already know some great collocations naturally, but I just wanted to point out ways that you can try and develop more. Okay, so your vocabulary list for this one here, for this reading, I think manufacture is worthwhile learning if you don't know what that is. Again, I'm going to write these all off on the screen at the end. Manufacture means to make something. Okay, here is another example of a strong collocation, ethical decisions. But I just wanted to point out, because some of you might go away and you might use this collocation dictionary and you might look here and you might type in decision and you might see, but it doesn't have ethical, right? Now, it doesn't have ethical as a collocation for decision. That doesn't mean that it's not a collocation, right? So again, this collocation dictionary has a lot of common ones. It doesn't have all of them, right? If you're wondering what ADJ is, that's the adjective, right? So that's why I looked here. And obviously ethical is an adjective and decisions, right? So don't be disappointed if the dictionary doesn't have something that you think is a collocation. It just has its limits, but it's still a very useful dictionary to use. Let's move on. There was one more collocation I wanted to point out, and it was actually from the, it was down here, resource, okay, resource allocation, right? So two words that I think are very worthwhile learning, right? But when we put them together, very strong allocation, strong collocations, and I can show you that. Right, so resource allocation is a noun-noun collocation, right? And we can see here, resource plus noun. So resource allocation, right? So just wanted to introduce you to those two sites, and I'll copy those addresses for you. And I'm just gonna switch my screen over to here. Okay, we're going to get rid of this. Okay, and okay, just want to give you that web address. The other web address is this one here. These are two of my favorites, and I've recommended these for years, right? So let's go back. Where are we? Okay, here's the next one I recommend. Now, I'll make that a bit bigger for you. These are the words which I selected from the reading. So remember, these words are ones which I found from the questions, right? So again, questions are a good way to limit your vocabulary learning so that you don't get overwhelmed. The first word I recommend, if I were making a vocabulary list for you would be development. I might change the color just so you can see the difference. Okay, let's put them in red. So this is your vocabulary list for today. Now, last time I did mention that I would like to make some little Instagram videos to help develop some of this vocabulary. That is definitely coming. Haven't been feeling too great recently, so I'm better now, but I will be onto that for you guys soon. Development, manufacture. What was the next one we had? Ethical. I'm not going to put decision because I'm pretty sure that you should know that one. Resource is a great one if you're not sure about that. Whoops. Allocation, right? Now I'm going to actually, I won't put a comma there because this is an example of, I'll put that in blue. Whoops, no, I won't. Okay, they've all changed to blue, but I was just going to say that resource allocation, they are, this one here, that's our collocation, right? So an example of collocation. So if you want to research your own collocations, if you want to check ones that you think are collocations, go to the ausdic.com. Learner's Dictionary would give you wonderful definitions for all of those words that I've listed there, and it has example sentences of them in use. So what I will do next is tell you again when the next webinars are going to be released. So we're looking at every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, they should be plural, right? So Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and again, I know a lot of you are watching from India, and obviously there's a huge population there, so I'll put your guys' time first. Just as a reference, that is 8 p.m. here in New Zealand, which has a very small population. But just thank you so much again. I'm going to go to a full screen for a second. If I can do that. Yep. So yeah, here we are, full screen. So just wanted to stay safe, and I will see you on Sunday. On Sunday, we're going to do the last reading section of the academic test. Then in weeks to come, we're going to release some listening, right? So we're going to use the GRAID platform, have a look at the practice for listening on the GRAID side as well. So stay safe, don't feel shy, just make sure, see if there's any questions here. So if you do have questions, I can always check them on my phone. And if you have questions watching this as a replay, please contribute them to the GRAID Facebook site. Take care.